Our guest today is Lionel Chetwynd. Lionel is a motion picture and television film director and producer. Several of his films have received acclaim, including The Apprenticeship of Judy Kravitz, for which he received the Writers Guild of America Award and was also nominated for an Academy Award. Over the years, Lionel has written, directed, or produced many famous films. He's also been a controversial figure, resigning from the caucus of producers, writers, and directors because of political blacklisting by members of the caucus. Lionel further made headlines during the 2016 Oscars diversity controversy, in which he chastised those who felt there were not enough African Americans getting awards. He commented that he and others are capable of recognizing good performances irrespective of the skin color of the actors. It is my pleasure to welcome Lionel Chetwynd to the Aminoff Effect. Thank you, Lionel. So Lionel, it's really a pleasure to have you on the show. We want this to be an opportunity for our viewers to get to know Lionel Chetwynd. So you've distinguished yourself by standing up for your political views in an industry that's not very accommodating to those views.
That's true.
You have many credits as a writer, producer, and director. One of your notable achievements is the film The Apprenticeship of Judy Kravitz, for which you received an Oscar nomination. And another is the TV series The Man Who Captured Eichmann and the documentary Darkness at High Noon about Carl Foreman, the American communist. So how did you, after serving in the Canadian Army and attending McGill University Law School and Trinity College in Oxford, make the decision that you wanted to spend your career in the entertainment field?
Just lucky. Just lucky, Gary. No, I had lucked my way into law school. In fact, I had left school very early at their request. Actually, I left school at 14. My father got into trouble. I went back the following year when they found him, and he was guesting with Her Majesty's Constabulary in Canada, and so I went back to school, but I was really no longer welcome. I was considered bad blood. The apple never falls far from the trees, said Mr. Cook, principal of the Ushbong High School, and I left school. And I worked at the factory for a while, and generally descended into where people descend when there's no support system, and when you're more or less don't have a family, and you're left to your own devices at the age of 15, 16. I was lucky. I ended up in the Army. I ended up in a very distinguished regiment, the Black Watch, Royal Highland Regiment. And I remember being dressed down by my sergeant on the second day for having dirty fingernails, and being told how dare I come out on a Black Watch parade ground with dirty fingernails. I had been at Waterloo, and I had been at Normandy, and he made me feel suddenly that there was something here worth being worthy of, and that began my turnaround, and so I look upon the Black Watch really as my mother in a way. I came out and I got into a city college, Concordia now, and without ever finishing high school, and that got me into McGill and then to Oxford. I figured out very early on, I mean, I got into college, but I didn't know what to do with that, you see. But I did learn a couple of things, which became very relevant in my later life. One was, here I was in a city college with no high school education. And it was called Sir George Williams at the time, named after the guy who founded the YMCA. Founded by the same people who had built McGill. McGill had been built by the great Scottish barons who had invented Canada. And it was one of the great universities in the world. It was the Harvard of Canada. Sir George was not the Harvard of Canada. Whereas at McGill, they'd sing, oh, it's not for knowledge that we go to college. That was their fight song. We'd sing, oh, it's not because we're gorgeous that we go to Sir George's, but we couldn't get into McGill. And it's very interesting, because years later, not long ago, I was watching Black Lives Matter people in the Dartmouth library saying, very angry, obviously frustrated. And I thought to myself, had I come out of the Army and gone into McGill without high school, I would have failed. I could never compete with those kids. But somehow the people who built McGill had also provided for me a stopping station at a place called Sir George Williams. It was called Sir George Williams College of the Montreal YMCA. But that was, for me, a few short years away from McGill University Law School, which was the Harvard, Cambridge of the Harvard, Yale, Canada, and then Oxford itself. And that's a lesson. It was a lesson to me about affirmative action. Don't be so compassionate that you won't help the guy off the floor. You keep him there and give him a cup of coffee. And that was the beginning of my shift from a leftist point of view that I'd grown up with in the factories. Obviously, I'd organized for the union. I'd been one of those people.
Right.
That was what I believed.
Right.
I watched the man come in from the showroom. My father was then back amongst free people. He was working there. Worked in the same factory for a while. And I'd watch people yell at him. I think, it's not his fault. It's the system. I began to realize it wasn't the system. The same people who provided McGill had provided this place for me. So I realized that I had I had small horizons. You see, that's the other thing. When you come out of a small background, you have small horizons. When you take someone from a small background and suddenly put them, be it through affirmative action or any other plan, suddenly into Harvard, and you give them broad horizons, you're not helping them at all. Because all I thought was, well, if there's a God, and I was just coming out of my leftist view, I wasn't yet sure I would later become quite certain, because certainly all the things that happened to me weren't happening because of Marx, okay? Let me put it that way. If there was a God, he probably had begun as a Jewish lawyer in Montreal, so that's what I was going to be. But clearly that was not the case. So I went through law. That wasn't what I wanted to be, and I was fortunate. I got a job at Columbia Pictures in London, and that led into a whole career that has given me an adult lifetime in Hollywood amid some of the most talented and screwed up people that you can imagine, some of the most interesting and stupidest people, blind, and yet it's a fascinating place to have spent my time. Look, you want to be a political person, this is not the place to come. Go to Washington, go to Sacramento if you have to. But that part of my life, which is very political, because my early life has never found a happy home here.
You found it in Hollywood.
Well, the political thing I've never been quite content. It's always kept me as an outsider. There was in the 1980s, there was a series of bitter, angry, horrible strikes here, Writers Guild strikes, in which I became the center of gravity of the anti-strike movement. I was the center of gravity because the first opposition was me and one other guy, Larry Mullen, God bless his heart. But after 10 years, we won. We formed the majority in the union, and we got rid of the whole left guard and had won that. But that was one small victory in a long line of living in an essentially unthinkingly left community. People in Hollywood are not reflective about their politics. They're reflexive, really. They arrive at their very left-wing conclusions, not because they sit and think about it or read about it, but they see that's what's going on, and they're like a hive mind. All the other bees are flying to that patch of clover. I better get there too, and that's where they go.
Yeah. So their friends and families are all left-wing. So
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. And there's a price to be paid for not being that, because, for most work in Hollywood, if you're a writer, doesn't demand Shakespeare. It demands a good, competent, capable person, and above a certain level, we're all qualified.
Right.
So they will pick the people they know, the people they like.
Yeah.
I could say, I used to say, particularly during the George Bush years, when I was really, I worked very hard for the first George Bush, W. Very hard through that first term to get him elected and to make him legitimate in Hollywood. We really did. But it was, I would say, George Bush, and they'd hear Adolf Hitler. I'd say Karl Rove, and they'd hear Heinrich Himmler, you know. And so it's very hard to be well liked when you consort with people who they think are,
Yes.
you know, the scum of the earth.
Yeah. So a lot of people in the industry who have political views like yours find themselves either ostracized, not getting work, or very difficult to get anything done in the industry. You've been able to survive and do it. And to what do you attribute that?
First, I never apologized for it. I never, and I'm very aggressive about it. Someone says something I don't like, and when I was in the Army, I had this guy, Corporal Murphy, Paul Murphy. I used to get in the scraps all the time about being Jewish, because Canadian Army wasn't full of Jews. Okay, I heard about a Major Cohen in the RCR, but that was about it. And he bought he gave me a mezuzah to wear. You know, I said, "What am I going to do that for? I just get in more fights." He said, "No, you won't." He said, "Be upfront about who you are." I said, "They're going to leave you alone." He said, "No one's going to." He said, "'Cause half the time someone says something and suddenly you're in a fight, right?" He says, "Now it'll remind them they'll shut up. You only get a fight with a guy who wants a fight. So put it out there. Be who you are."
Good.
And I did that here, and it worked for me. Now it worked for me because I had a particular skill I was selling. You know, I did the big historical stuff. I did you know, if you wanted scholarship, if you wanted details, if you were worried that Kissinger was going to sue you because you were doing Isaacson's book, you came to me and I'd give you an annotation and I could defend it, and I could be articulate about what I was doing. So I never got to do I never got to do Fast and Furious 14 and make big bucks.
Right.
I got to do The Man Who Captured Eichmann or Tom Selleck, the Eisenhower movie. But I love those movies, and they're gems, and Kissinger, Nixon, and every one of my movies.
Yeah,
I got to do the Hanoi Hilton. The Hanoi Hilton, which was a project of passion. It took me 10 years to get onto the screen, and it's a flawed movie because it was made with very little money, but it's there, and it's their story, and they loved it, the POWs.
Right.
So I'm proud of that. But yeah, I wear it like a mezuzah. You know, I'm a conservative Republican. You got a problem with that? Not to be bothered.
Right.
You know, I got so many other things to worry about here.
Right.
Why am I going to fight him on that one? Occasionally, someone will come up and be very, very aggressive about it. You know.
Yeah. So you made headlines in June 2011 when you submitted your resignation from the caucus
Yes.
for producers, writers, and
I
directors.
was so angry.
And you referred to a book published by Ben Shapiro titled Primetime Propaganda, the true Hollywood story about how the left took over your TV, in which he interviewed several people in the industry about opinion and policy. Tell us what prompted your resignation, what happened in the book that brought it to your attention?
Well, the thing was this. I had been blacklisted at HBO openly when John and Johnny, they had said we cannot hire him because he is a conservative. They cannot write caring characters when it comes to women or gay men. Which, you know, I could go through my credits and disprove that, presumably, but
Right.
you'll take my word for it, I hope.
Right.
And it was always a struggle, and I was taken advantage of, and that there were times when employment was soft for me, so I would get work, but they'd preface it by saying, but by the way, this is a rewrite, which puts you in a different scale of income. The Bible movies that won Emmys for Turner. I didn't win Bible movie. A Bible movie winning Emmys, a miniseries, Jacob and Moses winning Emmys for the best miniseries of the year in Hollywood because of their authenticity of the Bible. For Turner, won those, but well, they weren't, of course. They weren't really. But anyway, but I felt that was okay. That was the price I was paying because I was a conservative, and that everyone was trying to make it work. And all right, you know, he doesn't really fit. But well, what Ben did with that book was make it clear that these people enjoyed it. It wasn't simply that they disliked me because of my politics. It wasn't me, it was Republicans or conservatives generally, because I'm not a Republican, I'm a conservative. And I was sitting on, I was the vice chair of the caucus, which is a fairly, I mean, it's an elite organization of people who write and produce and direct television and popular culture. And here are these guys, I sat with them every month, and every week we worked together, and they were admitting to the fact that they took pleasure in seeing people like me punished and kept out of work because of what I thought.
Because of your political views.
Yeah, no one had ever got anyone to admit to that before.
Mm.
And in my letter, I made it clear. I said, I can't live with you guys. I can't be with you guys, because I thought it was a matter of different politics that made you uneasy. I didn't think you liked. I had kids in school, and you were punishing them. And it just sort of all welled up, And I was, and it became quite a cause célèbre. The caucus met, had a great soul searching, had a great venting. Poor Vin de Bono was really a good guy, by the way. I liked very much him, and my friend. I named in the letter. One of the largest, most important independent producers in the country. He took me to dinner. I felt I'd insulted him publicly. And they renounced and repudiated everything that had been said and changed their policies on a number of things. And I made a real effort to diversify opinion, even in the grants to the student filmmakers. We now see grants going to diversity of opinion and diversity, not just diversity of gender and race, but really this year for the first time we're seeing, or since then, we've seen films whose point of view, to the extent they're political, could be called right of center. So it was worth it. It was, and
it was.
Ben Shapiro did that, so good for him.
Yeah, and you contributed to that as well.
Well,
yeah,
he was poking me at the point. He was like, I'll put it up, and he pushed me.
Right.
He did, but he's successfully, and so good for him.
You spoke out recently about the brouhaha over diversity in the Oscar nominations.
No.
In fact, you wrote an article titled "Lay Off Us, Al Sharpton." Tell us why the race issue is coming up at this time, 2016. There have been African American Oscar winners for years. There have been years where all the winners were white and some where there were substantial black winners. But why is race an issue in the Oscars this year?
Well, because the Alice in Wonderland effect is increasing exponentially. I mean, just recently now in the West is saying white magazines should not write about black music.
Yeah, I saw that.
Look, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science came into being at a time when there was this great, the Académie Française, the Royal Society, at a time when the film was trying to grow up, to be the toy that grows up into a great scientific and artistic undertaking. And the enterprise would be helped by a body that would reflect those great Royal Society and Académie Française, les gens d'honneur, and would therefore try to cull from the practitioners the best of who they were and have them act as custodians of what was good and make sure that it continued to dwell in the succeeding generations. Worked for the Royal Society, worked for the RA, for the College of Surgeons and everything else. Maybe they don't have egos like us, I don't know. Now, by its nature, then that's going to change slowly because you're talking about the people who then constitute those organizations are members because of what they've done in their career, not because of what they've done in one movie. They're honored for one movie, but their membership is based on a career. I am quite capable of judging Jamie Foxx's performance as a performance by an actor with an absence of the adjective black.
Right.
Hence I voted for him.
Right.
And he won that year, and it was fantastic. But that doesn't mean to say everything he does is gold. And there was an arrogance attached to this thing about there's not enough
Black.
black. I mean, it's and now they're changing the membership rules. That may not be a bad deal to turn it over once every 10 years. I don't know, but it's stupid, and everyone knows on its face that it's stupid. But
did those who are complaining really think that the Academy membership makes their vote based on race?
Gary, here's the dirty little secret that no one wants to talk about. The quickest way to become a member of the Academy, and the easiest way, is to be nominated. Once you're nominated, you're in, right?
Right.
So, and the largest number of new members, I'm pretty sure, it has been for many years, that may have changed, but I don't think it has. It comes from each year's batch of nominees. The new nominees who are not previous members, that's where the big influx of new members comes from. I'm willing to say, though, the last few years, the vast majority of those have been Brits and Aussies. I would say that the young cadre of the Academy is probably significantly, if not a majority, young Brits and Aussies. So if you got a problem with racism, Kanye, Al, whatever, take it to England, okay, or take it to Sydney and Melbourne. Leave me alone, okay? I'm comfortable here in the Valley. We're not racist in the Valley. And that's true. You know, no one's talking about that. I'd love them to publish. You know, they say, well, there's so many are white and so many are this and so. I'm like, you know, how many were born in America?
Yeah.
And how many of the new members of the last 10 years are no longer Americans? You might be shocked. Oh, Canadians. Let's not forget Canadians, right?
But yet, it seems to me that the vote is mainly based on merit, irrespective of race.
Oh, of course. I can't imagine. I don't know anyone. What else are you going to vote on?
Right.
I mean,
Sure.
I can't imagine anyone voting on any other criteria. There's no point in voting.
Right.
Yeah, that I can think of. I mean, it's very petty. It
It
reveals
seems
more
to
about
me to be
it
very
reveals
petty
more
as well.
about the inherent racism of the accuser than it does of the accused.
Lionel, I commend you for standing up for who you are in your industry.
All by accident, Gary.
And I appreciate your coming out today to spend a few minutes with me and let people know a little bit about who is Lionel Chetwynd.
Pleasure to be here, Ruth. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you.